Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and welcome as well to 25 Days of Tonalism Volume 2. And this is day 9. The painting I've done a study after is by Julian Alden Weir. It is called Connecticut Scene at Branchville. And it's a nice little painting by Julian. I have looked up some information on Julian, and I will be getting into reading that in a minute here. He was not actually considered a tonalist. Usually he's categorized as an American Impressionist, but you have to realize that a lot of these, well, he was both actually. He did some work that was very tonal, and he did some work that was quite impressionistic. So but of course art historians and people like that like to label things, and that's those labels tend to take on a life of their own after a while. I have a very loose and personal interpretation of what defines an artist as a tonalist, and one day I will actually share my Pinterest site. I think if you put M. Francis McCarthy into Pinterest, I'd probably come up anyway, but I collect tonalist paintings there, and I'll throw Dutch guys in there. I might throw artists that aren't really full-time tonalists in there. One thing I usually exclude a lot of modern tonalists because that's just not my focus. It's not my thing to share the work of other modern artists in my Pinterest, but that doesn't mean there isn't some awesome American tonalists out there working. Speaking of artists working, I did notice when I decided to search for this image, I put the full title into the Google image search or web search, and lo and behold, you can get copies of this painting done in oil by an actual oil painting done by an actual artist. And these guys, they live in China, and some of them are actually very talented and quite able painters. But because they live in China, they will work for far less than somebody who lives in the West will work, and these prices that you see are reflected there. I think, depending on the size, of course, you could probably get a copy of something like a Julian Alden Weir at, say, 1620 for, I don't know, $150, maybe $200. Whereas I'm selling the study for $150 or $200, and I have had people come to me and say, "Oh, these studies after the masters are so great. You should do them larger." And I'm like, "No, I don't need to do that, because first of all, my intention is strictly to do something that's educational, and I am happy to sell the byproduct of it, but that is not the focus or reason why I'm doing these studies." That said, if I ever do a study, and I do keep all my studies that these are being shown on YouTube for these tonalist, tonalism, 100 Days of Tonalism, and the 25 Days, Volume 1 and 2. I keep all those intact because at some point I probably intend to have a show where I'll feature them, or who knows. But I have had people request various studies of various images that I've done, and I'm happy to do a new study. If that's something that you're into, just shoot me an email. You can take up my email from my website, which is landscapepainter.co.nz. And but the idea really is just for my education and for your education, if you're interested. And heck, sometimes some of my audience, I know you're not even artists, you just like watching people paint, and I can certainly relate to that. I know when I was younger, there's nothing I loved more than watching an actual piece of art being created, and these days with all the technology, it's just it's almost unlimited what we can do. Anyway, let's read you a little bit about Julian Alden Weir, and this is from the site Artsy. Oh, actually, I went to Wikipedia. Well, okay, well, Wikipedia is good. Weir was born on August 30th, 1852, the second to last of 16 children, and raised in West Point, New York. His father was a painter and a professor of drawing at the Military Academy at West Point, who taught such artists as, James McNeill Whistler, and also, I guess, Julian had an older brother named John Ferguson Weir, who also became a well-known landscape artist, who painted in the styles of the Hudson River and the Barbizon schools. And that's the thing about Alden, like I said, the Barbizon was going on, the Hudson River was on its way out. Lots of things were happening. Impressionism was happening, and you would have been crazy not to try your hand at some of these. This article actually goes on and on, so I'm going to leave it there, but I will paste a link to it in the blog post that's going to accompany this video. Now, I used to write essays on the blog, and I backed off, and I have seen a drop off on my blog traffic, and basically something had to give, because it was sort of a lark when I first started putting up the videos. I was like, oh, I don't, it just silent seemed oddly mysterious. So I thought, well, I can ramble for 10 minutes or 8 minutes. Actually, if you go back in time to some of the earlier videos on this channel, you see some of them are only 4 minutes long. But I can ramble for that long, so I'll just talk, and people, if they're not interested, they can just mute it and watch the painting. But it's been a good thing, and also it's sort of keeping an eye at where media has gone. So many people that maybe would take the time to read something before, if they can watch a video and listen to something instead, that's what they're going to do, and who can blame them, So I did put a lot of work into essays, and believe me, if there's a lot of valuable content there on the blog, you need to dig back a little bit, because these days what I put on the blog is a higher resolution image of the, it's not super high, but it's a decent resolution. You can see the actual painting I did in good detail, and I also put some grabs of zoom-ins of the painting, so you can see what it would look like close up, and of course the video is also in the blog post too, so it does give people that are interested, when I do a chance, they can just zip on down the blog, look at the pictures, play the videos, and whereas before they might have something to read that was actually different than the content on the video, these days I think, well, I'm providing a lot of content on the video, even if it's not as focused, say, as an essay on my blog. And I may get back into doing those essays on the blog again. The other thing I was running into there was I have taken a stance on the blog as a painter, and who's basically kind of a teacher of painting as well, because you need to take some sort of stance when you're a writer, and that's the angle I chose to take. But after a while, I found I was covering topics that I'd already covered before, sometimes 2 or 3 times. So if you are interested in the way I paint and learning more about tonalism, that blog is an excellent resource, and all you have to do is go back to the beginning and just start reading, and almost everything, I've probably covered almost every aspect of painting on there. The one aspect I tend not to cover too much is my my preparation of my reference images and the things I do digitally to get things going. And one of the reasons for that is because I really don't need those images judged as art, so they're just a step in the process. And while it could be interesting to someone who's another painter, it's not something I want to put out there for all time. And so I really don't get into that. But when I finally do get around to doing this book I've been thinking of doing, I will be covering that, because how you approach and use reference, whether it's actual nature or some type of photograph, or you say you've got a photograph and several paintings by other artists that you want to influence the painting you're doing. I've done that before. These things really, they all find their way into the painting, so they're valuable for that. Now this is my second attempt at the audio here. This lovely movie edit program decided to crash and not tell me, so I sat here rambling into the ether for 10 minutes already one time, but I'm doing it again because I love you guys, and I'm so glad that you subscribe, and I try to provide you with good, reliable content so that we can all learn to enjoy painting and tonalism and together. Anyway, I can see we're getting pretty close to the end here. So if you enjoy my channel, subscribe. I dig it. Hopefully you're getting some out of the rambling as well. But even if you don't, you can always mute the volume and just watch me paint, right? Also, you can. We talked a bit about the blog today, and there's a higher resolution image there. You can follow my blog pretty easily just by going to my website, landscapepainter.co.nz. And also there's a lot of other little nuggets of things there too, so it's worth checking out, and I will be updating it pretty soon. I do have this upcoming museum show, which I'm going to do a page for there on the website this week, and the show is going to be hung next Friday and the opening, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow. Meanwhile, take good care and stay out of trouble.